So the UAE has really invested significantly into creating, let's say, a very, very effective port system here.
What we are seeing is hundreds of container vessels stuck outside ports. We are seeing trucks unable to pick up containers piling up in ports. What has gone wrong with the ports? Why don't they work?
As we have talked to Shaban and myself, I mean, we are very visible, right? So when you have 60 vessels parked outside Los Angeles, Long Beach, and you have congestion happening in ports around the world, it's super visible, and you can have a helicopter or drone footage that actually shows that, it must be the port is the bottleneck. It's where we have the majority of the problems. But the way that we see it is that it is, of course, a lot more things than just that. So a lot what you see in Los Angeles, Long Beach is mainly related to the landside operation. So it's about having truck, chassis availability. It's about having rail availability. It's about moving the containers. And if you cannot move your containers out of the port, then of course you're building up your utilization level at a very, very high level. So first of all, you cannot get the containers out. You get more and more congested. Everything will slow down in the operation. On the other side, you cannot get any empties back. So the vessels will have to sail empty, practically, going back on the Pacific. So there's a lot of issues that happens around the ports, no doubt about it. But I think the marketing around it is, of course, that ideally we as ports, we would like to move the problem in terms of marketing a little bit away from the port, because it's actually a whole chain reaction that is happening worldwide as we look at it today. I feel that we don't have as many problems in the Middle East and in the UAE as of course we may see in the US, Asia and Europe. But I do think that, let's say that it's also about a planning cycle around it. What we are faced with is the repercussions of delays, repercussions of ports are closing, and you're ending up with a lot of very large vessels that has to all of a sudden arrive at the same time. So that causes, of course, a little bit of waiting time. But most of the time, you can say we actually have pretty good scheduling systems for all our ports. So in principle, there should not be any congestion. There is plenty of labor, there's plenty of berth, there's plenty of capacity in this region to take care of business, even in the growth scenarios we're talking about today. So the UAE has really invested significantly into creating, let's say, a very, very effective port system here. So that both goes for not only Jebel Ali and Khalifa port, but certainly also for other ports as well. So we have a very strong network around our ports that can sustain, very significant growth also going forward. The way that I see on the global scale, just to take the attention a little bit away from ourselves only, is that it has to be a much wider discussion. We have to be able to discuss, let's say, truck availability, or even the hours that trucks can move in and out of ports. How do we serve the market? How do we become more effective? And of course, it's a much longer term planning, right? And the US, they can't fix this tomorrow. They cannot fix Long Beach. They cannot fix Los Angeles. And when it comes to Europe, you see a little bit less of congestion. Why? Well, the reason is, of course, that you have many, many ports in Northern Europe located within a very short distance. So if it's possible for you, you can actually deviate your vessels to other ports and try to channel final destination via another port. Once you move to Los Angeles, you don't really have much of an option. There is not much of an alternative. So it's always about location, and of course, how you are suitable for it. And maybe we can, of course, talk a little bit about how each of the ports are equipped. What are we planning for the future? What is the technology? What is the investments that all are putting in? But just like Shahab is mentioning here, we wouldn't work unless we are connected, let's say, through our port community systems. And in our case, of course, I can say that we have 43 government entities that are linked into the same system. So a single platform, and similar exists, of course, in Jebel Ali to a very large extent, that in order to facilitate trade, we are connecting everybody together. And that is the key point here. But we have some physical boundaries, especially in ports around the world, that is preventing containers from physically moving away. And this is, of course, something we have to consider how to address going forward. So the answer to your question, very long answers you got here, but the main issue is actually not really the ports. It is actually how we together resolve the full supply chain of it. And we are, of course, very deeply involved in all the port operations, logistic operations we are involved in. But of course, it's a global play. It's a global play where we really need partnerships to shape up.